Sellers, I think, are so used to our market being so fast-paced. If you list on a Thursday, your home will be pending by Sunday night. And now that things are slower, there's probably been a lot of panic. Sellers are thinking they missed their time to sell, they might lose money, prices could fall like crazy, all of this extreme stuff. But in reality,
my client wanted to put in an extremely low ball offer, and this is an investor client from the South. And regardless, he went and decided to put in an offer like 25% below the list price. Because in his market, where he's from, that's somewhat acceptable. Here, doesn't really happen. And so anyways, the point was we ended up submitting the offer, and within 5 minutes I found out that the place went pending for over the list price. And it's just the nature of our market. I mean, you kind of have to be very real about, just because something's been on the market for 5 days doesn't mean that there's an opportunity to go way under list.
It's a common question that people are asking today. How is the market? I'm like, oh, the market is What's up, everybody? We are back for another episode of Seattle Living and Wealth Building. Welcome to the show. We've got our usual suspects. Michael Dapper. How you doing?
Keep doing great.
Justin Day.
What's up, people?
Hey. I'm the team leader of the Wagner Real Estate Group at RE/MAX Northwest here in the great Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Washington. Super excited to have a very special guest on, a longtime member of the Wagner Real Estate Group. Her name is Sarah Ashby. She has a business called Ashby Real Estate Solutions, which provides solutions that make sure transactions in real estate for our buyers and sellers go incredibly smooth. So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Maynard. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, super happy to have her. Sarah and I have known each other for 6+ years right now. Mm-hmm. We've got Mr. Justin Day, who's been with the team 5 years. So, and Dapper, who's been here, like 3 years now?
2.5, maybe.
2.5 years, yes, the veteran of the group.
Time flies.
Yeah, so on today's Seattle Living and Wealth Building, we're going to cover what the heck is going on with the real estate market today. Sarah is a transaction coordinator, works with a lot of different agents, so she's well aware of what is happening in the market today, not those headlines that you see that relate to activity that was probably 30, 45 days ago. So that's going to be insightful. We're going to talk about Sarah's move from the great eastern state of Vermont and what brought her here and what it's like to be a 20-something-year-old here in the Seattle market and Seattle real estate area. That's kind of it. So let's dive right in, shall we?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Who wants to fire off the first question?
Michael?
Well, let's talk about, market activity and kind of, I'm curious to see what Sarah's seeing out there. So, me personally, what I've been seeing is buyers are coming out, especially after the holidays. We're well into the first quarter. So seeing a lot more movement and activities, more pendings have been going on since we reviewed the MLS. So I'm curious of, what Sarah's perspective is as far as her business goes. She works with our team, but also other agents as well.
For sure. So I work with 26 or 27 brokers across the greater Seattle
Which
region.
one is it, Sarah?
There's so many of them. It's like herding cats. I can't keep track of them all. And most of them stick to the greater metro area of Seattle, the east side, Snohomish County. But they've had transactions as far north as Linden and as far south as Olympia. So it's really pretty wide ranging and big in terms of price points and what people are looking for also. So I kind of get to see all of it. But I agree with Michael. Things definitely are picking up a bit from January and December of last year even. Things really started to slow down, I would say probably October or so of last year. But comparing this year to last year, even though things are starting to pick up and we're heading towards that traditional spring bump that we usually see, it's definitely not at like the levels that it was last year quite yet. Currently, I track all of my transactions that I'm working on by the close date for each of them. And I'm expecting 25 deals to close that I'm working on in February of this year. But last year I had closer to 40. Wow. So it's a pretty significant difference. But like you guys said, people are starting to come out after the holidays. They're intrigued and excited about mortgage rates slowly ticking down a little bit, and they're feeling a little more confident. So I think that's really encouraging and something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to as well, Sarah, is number of transactions that are happening, not so much the activity that's happening within the buyer market or whatever it may be. So I think that's an important thing to kind of put out there.
Yeah, for sure. That's strictly just stuff that is currently under contract right now. I've had some of the other brokers that I work with mention that they've had buyers get into multiple offer situations again. They've seen a couple offer review dates thrown onto listings again, which for the past couple months, it's been a lot slower, and those offer review dates haven't been needed as much. So yeah, it's picking up. I don't think it'll be quite as hectic as it was last spring, but that was pretty wild anyway. So I think that's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about this and I'm like, oh, hey, how is the market, right? It's a common question that people are asking today. How is the market? I'm like, oh, the market is fantastic. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's fantastic because it's a normal market. There are great houses that are coming on the market. You're getting multiple offers. So what does that mean? It means the best, nicest houses that are priced well are getting a lot of attention. Then you've got crappy houses that have been sitting on the market too long, that have been overpriced and just are not desirable. What's happening with those? Well, buyers are actually negotiating deals on those properties, right? So it's a normal market. You negotiate great deals off of these properties that are less desirable. You pay more for the properties that are awesome. Seems normal, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and you're right, Maynard. I mean, it is a normal market that we're in.
Yeah.
Normal type of activity, but the amount of activity isn't quite as high as what we're used to. So I think it's really a matter of people trying to find that, middle ground again of how they feel about the market. I mean, they're seeing mortgage rates start to drop and they're starting to get a little bit more excited about it. But the way the market is reacting is very much a normal market. So. Yeah. And I mean, I actually did a video about this the other day about the fact that, I actually feel like now is a better time to potentially buy a home because of the amount of seller concessions and the credits that you're able to get from sellers. Doing that now and taking advantage of these temporary buy down programs can make a lot more sense than people waiting for mortgage rates to drop, buyer activity to increase. And therefore you're just in a flipped market again where it's more competitive as a whole. So I think that, right now we're kind of in that middle ground, that neutral zone where there's definitely places that are super competitive and other places that are very, very stagnant and sitting on the market for a long period of time.
Yeah, I definitely see, today's market is kind of a combination of the two, where November, December was pretty slow, right? So it wasn't uncommon that even a really compelling property listed well, marketed well, would sit for maybe a week, 2 weeks, or even a month. Those properties today are selling in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, right? So we're seeing that, that's kind of something new or something that's coming back. But we're also seeing those other properties that might sit for 2 or 3 months. But, there's always an opportunity there. And Maynard, you've got a listing right now that you're already addressing that ask, right, by a buyer. I like this property. I feel the value is there at the list price, but I need to combat this rate. So, seeing lenders get creative, listing agents get creative, and kind of preemptively offer these credits, there'll be a point where that goes away because maybe it's not needed. But right now, it is kind of this perfect mix of those two kind of opportunities out there.
I got to tell you guys one thing. I actually submitted an offer yesterday for an investor client who had seen this property. It had been on the market for 5 days. So it had gone through the weekend and, there it hadn't gone pending yet. And so my client wanted to put in an extremely low ball offer. And this is an investor client from the South. I'm not going to name where, and regardless, he went and decided to put in an offer like 25% below the list price. Because in his market where he's from, that's somewhat acceptable.
Sure.
Here, doesn't really happen. And so anyways, the point was we ended up submitting the offer. And within 5 minutes, I found out that the place went pending for over the list price.
Wow.
And, it's just the nature of our market. I mean, you kind of have to be very real about, what the desirability of that place looks like, that it's going to move quickly. Just because something's been on the market for 5 days doesn't mean that there's an opportunity to go way under list. I mean, trust your agent and trust the advice they're giving you in terms of how it's priced and how it's going to react.
That's what I was thinking too. Like agents have to be able to manage their clients' expectations, whether you're working with the buyer or the seller. Sellers, I think, are so used to our market being so fast paced. If you list on a Thursday, your home will be pending by Sunday night. And now that things are slower, there's probably been a lot of panic. Sellers are thinking they missed their time to sell. They might lose money, prices could fall like crazy, all of this extreme stuff. But in reality, like you guys said, it's just more balanced right now. It's more normal. Our normal for so many years was just chaotic, and people got used to that.
Yeah.
And with buyers too, you have to coach them on stuff like that. Hey, 25% below list isn't really reasonable or normal here, and it's not really going to fly. So both ends of the spectrum.
What about, like, for instance, when we were in an extremely active market where, buyers needed to close super, super quickly to make it compelling enough for a seller to accept their offer. What are you seeing in terms of, the technicalities of a contract and how that's kind of changed? I mean, I know I don't want to run down a rabbit hole like I've done in the past, but, like close date, for instance, are you seeing a lot of places that are closing in longer periods of time in this type of market, or are you kind of just still seeing kind of a normal?
Maybe a couple more than I was previously in like the past couple of years, but not really. It's still pretty much around a month or so, I think, for an average. I have seen a handful, even with traditional conventional financing, close really, really fast. I think, like you said earlier, lenders are getting creative with ways to make their clients' offers more enticing. And that can include, pre-underwriting them so that they're able to close faster. I just had an agent yesterday have a buyer close on a place, I think 8 days early. It's just a matter of everyone collaborating, the buyer getting paperwork into their lender in time, and everyone just really being prepared to get the deal done.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting is that the sellers who are succeeding right now, they're actually doing a lot of the steps that were necessary to get those multiple offers and big bidding wars. So the market has changed, but the sellers who are having the most success are putting some investment into the property to make it more marketable and attractive to the buyers. They're doing a pre-inspection, trying to take care of most of the things that are, that a buyer would, buyer would have an issue with. And the third piece is they are like pricing it well. If you do those three things, you've got a great property that buyers are willing to buy and make strong multiple offers for. So it's not a market where you have to do too much, but you can't take shortcuts in your marketing either. And as a buyer, if you're particular about the property that you're looking for and you're frustrated by the lack of inventory, well, get pre-approved. Be 100% ready to move on a property quickly, because there are not a lot of offer review dates. Buyers can get in there and just make a strong list price offer and get it. So that's a big advantage. And if there's another property that is a little less desirable, it's been sitting on the market, get an inspection contingency. It'll allow you to make sure that there's nothing too wrong with the property, and you can potentially negotiate discounts and concessions further. So it's definitely a market where you need an expert agent to navigate exactly when do I bid high, when do I bid low. And for sellers, getting the proper advice about how to price it in the market to be able to sell and maximize profit.
Yeah. And to that point, I would say to any buyer out there, don't let days on market fool you. Like I was just in a situation that we ended up winning, but this property had been on the market for at least 2 months, maybe more than that. And, hadn't had a lot of bites, no recent showings or anything like that. We went and saw it, wanted to take a second look. In the process, getting the pre-approval. It was a client that I've been working with for a long time, so he needed a new, fresh pre-approval, but didn't have one ready. Well, in that 2-day period, another offer got submitted. So now all of a sudden we're in competition after something that had been sitting that nobody wanted. Well, that's just not the case, right? So it ended up costing us, $7,500. Still a great deal, but if we had that pre-approval ready, could have done it, a little bit quicker. So,
yeah, excellent. So, well, cool. I mean, I think that's a pretty good summary of what's happening in the state of the current market right now. It's definitely picked up.
And it's shifting again. I mean, to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're entering the busy spring season, which is always busy seasonally, kind of no matter what. So if you're a buyer sitting on the sidelines, still a little skittish, nothing wrong with going and getting pre-approved and being ready for it.
I think the best thing that buyers can do also, especially first-time buyers, is just get out and tour. I mean, even if you don't feel 100% ready quite yet, just get some tours under your belt, kind of get that experience of seeing houses in person, weeding out, what you absolutely want, what you absolutely need, and what you can live without in terms of home features, and just get a feel for like checking out houses and knowing what to look for. I think then if you're waiting to save up more for a down payment or whatever your reason is, when that time comes and you're actually ready, you'll feel more fully prepared.
Yeah, and also preparing
brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely brilliant. Yeah, so
and also really the idea of just understanding the process of what it's like to buy a home. I mean, obviously that's one of the many parts to what it is to buy a home. And what people don't really realize is that once you get interested in that home and you find the home that you really want, well, what does that look like to go through the process of getting under contract, coming up with a strategy that really makes sense for you, and then where you're more involved, which is the closing process of
Yeah, well, and I've seen some of the agents that I work with send their buyers like basic offer paperwork, pick a practice house and we fill it in just like with the property details and stuff like that. So they can really go through the forms together in a meeting over the phone, on Zoom, in person, whatever, and go through the intricate details of the forms. What does this financing contingency mean? What is this deadline? How can this impact me? And what are my risks here? That way, when it comes time to jump, buyers are just like, okay, this is the number that I want to put in here. I'm comfortable waiving this contingency, but I want to keep this one. I think it's just a better way to be more prepared when it is time to jump.
Yeah, 100%. Preparation is key. It's never too early to start thinking about buying and getting prepared for that process, even if you're a year out from now. So just get started. That's the key.
And it's fun to think about. It's exciting, and that should be your mindset always. It's a really cool thing.
All right. Well, I want to dive into the next topic, which is what it's like and why you moved here. What made you stay here aside from the fact that we've been partnering together for 6 years? I know that was a huge part of your decision.
Mostly you guys, easily.
Yeah. So I'm super curious just about kind of what brought you here and what made you stay.
Yeah. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with Vermont or anyone listening to this. It is a very small rural state. I grew up in a town called Fletcher, which is 2 or 3 towns from the Canadian border, about 45 minutes north of Burlington, which is Vermont's biggest city. And it's about the size of Bellingham, give or take. There's not really a major metro area there. I was closest to Montreal. Boston is about 4 hours away. But I think growing up, everyone in Vermont is like, I want to move to a big city when I grow up. And people would say Boston, people would say New York City. And I honestly think I was just being kind of a brat and wanted to be different. And so I picked Seattle because no one else said Seattle, and it stuck. I just had a gut feeling that I would like it. I saw pictures in magazines and it looked really beautiful with the Space Needle and Mount Rainier. And it truly just stuck.
What's holding her here right now, though, is the fact that she's become a really big diehard Kraken fan. She just loves the Seattle Kraken.
There you are, Justin.
I'm just kidding.
Poking the bear.
Oh, good.
I'm probably the Kraken's biggest hater, but don't hold it against me, please. So I went to college in Boston and got a Bachelor of Fine Arts and still carried that intrigue about Seattle through my time in college. Got to visit for the first time my junior year, so March 2015, and fell in love with it the moment my plane landed. It just solidified the deal for sure. So I finished college, I went home and worked like crazy, saved up tons of money, and October 1st of 2016, my mom and I drove out across the country, spent 7 days on the way out here. And it's been almost 6.5 years, and I have not had a single day where I'm unhappy to be here. It's really similar to Vermont in a lot of ways, and New England in general, especially in like the environment, the climate in a way. It just doesn't get as bitterly cold as New England is known for. But there's just more here. There is so much opportunity here. There is more like a wider range of natural landscapes to see. You have the ocean, you have the desert in eastern Washington, you have these giant urban cores, you have crazy tall mountains here. There's everything. And there's just so much happening here with art and music and culture. And it feels like more. So
that's a great point though, because I feel like a lot of people who look at the city of Seattle think of it as this big city, right? And I'm referring to Seattle proper. But the one unique thing about Seattle is that each of those individual neighborhoods are so uniquely different, and they all have their own little feel to them and their own vibe. I mean, Sarah lives in Greenwood, and I know you love Greenwood.
Absolutely.
And, you know, there's so much. I mean, there's the Angry Beaver there. I mean, for anyone who's a hockey fan, I mean, the Angry Beaver is
one of the best
the hockey bar of all hockey bars. But yeah, I mean, you know, obviously it's a place that has spoken to you. You've lived there for few years now, I guess.
I've been in Greenwood for 2 years now. But even when I was living up on the north end prior to moving into Seattle proper, I would go to the Angry Beaver to watch playoff games and Bruins games, the real good team here. I would go to watch them all the time. And yeah, there's just, like you said, there's a really distinct feel for every neighborhood. Greenwood is really, really cute and homey and residential and friendly. Fremont just has so much like crazy, wacky, fun stuff going on. And there's so many fun, creative places in there. West Seattle is its completely own vibe. Capitol Hill, you know, that is a really big draw here. And there's something for everybody.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Number one neighborhood, Greenwood. Number one neighborhood, Capitol Hill. Yeah. How about you guys?
I'm a Kenmore boy. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's funny because it really depends on what you're looking for in an area, right? You know, I've got a young family. I mean, for me, I would obviously be looking for things that are very different than what you as a 20-something would be looking for, right? So your favorite neighborhood? I mean, one of my favorite neighborhoods is actually Madison Valley.
So beautiful.
I love it there because you're close to the water, close to Capitol Hill. There's a lot of townhouses there. So like, I think, you know, I kind of have this affinity for that style of living if I wanted to live in a more urban environment.
It feels urban, but like not at the same time.
Totally.
It's a really good area.
You're very close to everything, yet feeling a little bit removed from everything as well. So that's a neighborhood that I definitely speak to. How about you? I mean, you live in Ballard, so that's good.
And I've been in Ballard for a long time, but I mean, I've lived all over. You know, when I was in school, I lived in the U District. I lived in Capitol Hill. I've lived in Sandpoint. Now I've been in Ballard for years now, but you know, some people think Ballard's like the other end of the earth, but it's so funny because Seattle is really like a big little city or a little big city, however you want to put it.
Seriously.
And it's, you know, I always liken it to people that have just moved here to like New York in some ways, but just on a much smaller scale, where every neighborhood does have its own identity. You know, the culture can change. There's different food, different attractions, but you know, they're all really pretty close together. And Ballard in particular, you know, is known for a lot of, you know, privately owned restaurants, lots of bars, breweries, tons of breweries. And, you know, there's a lot of dogs in the neighborhood. So it's kind of its own vibe. It's like Capitol Hill if you turned it down to like 7. So, it's just like people from Capitol Hill, you know, it's but like if you don't want to be
sprinkle a little Greenwood, sprinkle a little Fremont.
But the funny thing is Capitol Hill is one of those neighborhoods where, you know, it can be on 10, but it can be on 1 as well. I mean, there's parts of Capitol Hill that you have some of the most beautiful properties in the entire world. I mean, they're just gorgeous and totally quiet. There's nothing close. I mean, it's as residential as it gets. And then, you know, right down the street, maybe 5-6 blocks away, you're all of a sudden in the heart of everything.
Big difference living like on Federal versus living on
That's a very good point.
But yeah, you know, and it's always refreshing though to hear somebody talk about Seattle and these areas that, you know, wasn't born here, because I think as somebody that's born here, you naturally take it for granted, you know, and she's naming off all these things. I'm like, God, I got to get out to the mountains. I got to go to the water. I got to go see that stuff, you know, because you kind of just, you know, you forget how lucky we really are to be in this area.
Yeah. There's so much to take advantage of, and it's easy to get in your rut of doing the same old stuff all the time. But there's some amazing places.
Cool. So you're a dog owner.
I am a dog owner. A very sassy corgi.
Give us a fun, 20-something weekend here in Seattle. What do you do?
I love to go to a dog park bar that's in my neighborhood. It's called VOF. I'm there an embarrassing amount almost every day.
Are you a shareholder?
I'm a member.
Investor?
So,
Yeah.
it's a really wonderful spot. There's a really solid core group of regulars that go there, and it's just a great spot to bring your dog. It's a fenced-in turf yard, so they don't get dirty in the winter, so that's really nice. And they have a covered area that you can sit in, and it doesn't hurt that they have like beers and ciders on tap, but like it's not weird if you're not drinking. It's not weird if you don't have a dog and you just go to hang out. It's awesome. I love to try new restaurants and go out to eat. One of my favorite places right now, because I'm on a big Thai food kick, is Bangrak Market in Belltown.
Yeah.
Never had a bad meal there. It's just phenomenal. Dreamland in Fremont, they have my favorite drink in the city, which is a passion fruit whiskey sour. It will change your life. So yeah, just bouncing around between fun places like that. I love the breweries in Ballard, like we mentioned earlier. I love to get out with my dog to various other parks. I live pretty close to Carkeek and just discovered like even more extensive trails going through Carkeek and the old apple orchards in there. So there's hidden gems like all around the city, and having a dog is a great excuse to get out and check them out. I hang out at my friend's bar in Queen Anne a lot. It's called Bad Bar in like Lower Queen Anne or Uptown. But
That's your friend's bar.
I will never
cool.
call it Uptown. I'm sorry.
Stick with lower.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around it.
No. But yeah, it's just a really great spot, and everyone that works there is really cool. So that's kind of my regular haunt. We mentioned hockey earlier. I am a rabid Boston Bruins fan.
One of her hobbies, though, as a Boston Bruins fan, is to heckle all the Kraken fans. So,
but I'm not lying with anything that I'm saying. So, just spitting facts.
well, it'll be fun when the Bruins and the Kraken meet in the Cup final this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we'll see.
It'll happen.
We'll see. I've been checking out the Southgate roller rink down in White Center a lot lately. I have some friends that have gotten into roller skating, and so they get me to go. Every time I go there, I fall a lot and leave with the most horrifying bruises, but it's so fun to skate around. They have DJs and bands that'll play in the middle of the rink, so you're all just skating in circles around them, which is really cool. They do disco nights, LGBTQ nights, so that's really, really fun. I like to go to concerts a lot. I love to cook and bake and read. I'm a bit of a homebody, but I try to get out and just explore.
Sounds like you're doing a lot of stuff. I don't know how much of a homebody you
It's a lot
are.
of stuff.
It's a good mix, but yeah, there's so much going on here. It's hard to be bored living in Seattle.
Amazing. Well, I'd like my life changed. So it sounds like we all need to go get that passion fruit whiskey sour at some point.
Go.
So here we go. Yeah. When's this thing end?
I was like, I might need to follow Sarah around this weekend.
There you go. Yeah.
One thing that you said, Michael, was, obviously you're from Seattle and you've been here for a really long time, obviously. For having been here for 6.5 years, I've been here for 15 years now. And, for someone who is not from here originally, I mean, it is really interesting to see the perspective of people who've chosen to live here as opposed to people who have always been here.
Yeah.
For myself, I've lived in a bunch of different neighborhoods like West Seattle, Wedgwood, South Lake Union before it was South Lake Union. So, it's been fun to kind of see how the city's developed. It's obviously changed a lot, even in the 15 years that I've been here. But I just love hearing your perspective on what you've experienced here in the 6 years. It's cool. I mean, you sound like you're a more expert in Seattle than most people. So
it's like I still, every time I head downtown and I see the Space Needle and the downtown skyline come into view, I still get butterflies. Like, I am very much in love with this city. I mean, once I'm done being young and social, I'm definitely going to move out to the peninsula, like all the way on the coast, and be a hermit, because I also have a love affair with the coast. But yeah, like we said, I mean, there's just so much to love here, and there's so much to do. So
love it.
Yeah, and I think you barely scratched the surface,
Yeah,
right?
seriously.
Yeah, of all the things that you can do.
Well, you got a long time till you're a hermit. So
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think another interesting thing, let's talk a little bit about the wealth building aspect of this show, right? And Sarah's a phenomenal example of somebody maybe who got into an industry with a lot of experience, right? And you just rolled up your sleeves, learned something, and brought incredible value to us by learning exactly how to make sure that when a buyer or seller gets into contract, they don't just get into contract, they get to closing very smoothly. So Sarah is really an integral part of our team as the transaction coordinator for the Wagner Real Estate Group. And we've done hundreds of transactions together, thanks to you. But you used to work for a firm and now you run your own business. Let's talk about that whole transition.
Yeah. When I first started working in Seattle, it was my very first job working at a real estate brokerage. And I was basically a glorified receptionist. I took the job just to get some basic admin experience and learn about the inner workings of an office and a business, because I didn't have any experience in that field. And I got bored. I asked for more work. And so I started assisting 2 agents with transaction coordination. And they kind of taught me everything I needed to lay the foundation for my current role. I really liked it. I loved having a hand in this giant life event for people's clients. Even if they never knew that I existed, that I was working behind the scenes, it was still very rewarding to be a part of that. So I told my boss at the time that I'd be happy to do this for more people. And that's how we started working together. Maynard was my third
time's a charm.
Yeah, exactly. And just grew it and grew it and grew it. It became my full-time position after a couple years. And then it was 2020. And I think the pandemic and the shift to remote work and just people having to change their perspective on work in general really made a lot of people rethink what they want to be doing. And am I happy in my current role? Where do I want my career to go? And I started to kind of think that it was just time to take the next step in my career. So March of 2021, I left the brokerage that I was at to just go independent with it. And I'm coming up on my 2-year mark, and it's been really wonderful. I've been very fortunate to have a solid core group of agents stand behind me nonstop, including you guys. I mean, when I left the brokerage that I was at, I was working with over a dozen agents, and nearly all of them chose to stick with me, which was very, very gratifying. And I've taken on a handful more since going independent with it. So it's been really, really cool to kind of learn the trials and tribulations of being your own boss and stumble through some things and learn things along the way. But really getting to do things how I want to do it has been really awesome.
I think it's worth noting that you didn't have any desire to be an entrepreneur.
True.
You just simply, found yourself in a situation that you grew to love.
Yeah.
And, obviously that's something I'm curious about is what is it about real estate that kind of speaks to you? I mean, you're obviously a rock star and like we couldn't do what we do without you, but
thank you.
At the end of the day, why is it that you want to continue doing what you do and why did you start Ashby Real Estate Solutions?
Well, yeah, like I said, I was ready for the next step in my career and I was just excited to grow what I do. Having the chance to structure it how I want, have more flexibility, be able to, go home and visit my mom and work from Vermont. That helps a lot. But like I said earlier, the coolest part is even if it's a tiny role, having a role in this giant life event for your clients. Even if I barely speak to them, if at all, throughout the transaction, still, it's probably one of the biggest transactions they'll ever make in their life, whether they're buying or selling. And being able to have a hand in that is just so cool. It's a huge deal. But yeah, I didn't plan to be where I'm at. I kind of have been riding the wave and shooting from the hip, I like to say. But at the end of the day, it's really cool and I'm really happy.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's important to note that yes, sometimes maybe the client isn't speaking with you directly, but as an agent, like the level of service that you provide is like transaction coordinator plus.
On steroids.
Like on steroids, right? So, what a lot of people don't realize is that there's a lot of work that an agent does to get you in contract. But after you're in contract, there's tons of paperwork that's coming through on a daily basis. And if you've got 2 or 3 deals going on at the same time, you could spend hours a day scouring through all these emails and all this technical stuff that Sarah's an expert at. And, she looks at that on behalf of, myself and the client and make sure that everything is on point. So that way I can just be like, hey, Sarah, anything I need to know? Nope, we're all good. And that's, that saves me tons of time in order to provide value to other people. So like her role is beyond just background double checking things. I mean, it's like Justin said. I mean, we could not do the volume that we do without not just a transaction coordinator, but without Sarah specifically. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever I talk to a friend or someone who doesn't work in real estate and I tell them what I do, they're like, okay, what is a transaction coordinator? What does that mean? And I basically explain it to them that if you buy or sell a house with an agent that I work with, I'm making sure that it goes smoothly for you. I'm making sure that your deadlines are met, that your paperwork gets to everyone who needs it, that you're having a pleasant experience in general. And yeah, there's a lot of people that have a hand in real estate transactions, whether it's other agents, mortgage lenders and their team, escrow agents and their teams. So I'm a small part, but keeping track of all the smaller parts is basically what I do.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why people love working with us as a team is, we obviously have a great group of agents that are on the team, but we also have support staff that are able to help us through the process of focusing on things that we need to focus on to make it more impactful for our clients.
Exactly.
And, you are really the hub of all of that in many respects, right? So, it's important for our clients to realize that this is the face of that person who's behind the scenes doing all that stuff for us. And, to be candid, you're doing stuff that I'm not really that great at. But it allows me to be able to focus on all the things that, I'm a rock star at.
That's
so
what we call job security.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But so to that point, though, I mean, what do you think, in your opinion, as someone who works with a bunch of agents, what do you think makes a good agent? Like, so if you're speaking to Mr. or Mrs. First-time homebuyer, what would that good agent look like to you?
I mean, there's so many qualities, and I am in the unique position where I work with so many agents, and every single one of them does things a little bit differently, and every single one of them serves their clients in different ways. But at the end of the day, you want a broker that's going to have your back, that is going to support you and have your best interests in mind. They're going to answer your questions and be communicative. You're going to be able to get a hold of them, maybe not at like midnight on a Tuesday, but they're going to be there for you. So I think number one is definitely like that communication level, being there to answer your questions and guide you through things and really be your resource, but also on the other end of that, they should be listening to you, and agents that are really hearing you out, hearing your concerns, hearing what you're after and what goals you want to accomplish. I think being data driven is really important, and really having a tab on what is happening in the market. Those headlines that we see in the Seattle Times are always at least a month delayed from what is actually happening today. So staying up to date on what is happening in hyper local neighborhoods and in, single family homes versus condos, and really keeping a tab on what's going on today so that you can help your buyer or seller be successful in whatever they want to accomplish. I think that's really important. And just being thoughtful and kind. I feel like real estate agents get a bad rap sometimes and get compared to like used car salesmen or something. But if you're a thoughtful and kind agent and person in general, I think that's crucial, because you're going to develop a deeper connection with your clients. They'll potentially, often, especially in your guys' case, they'll become friends. They'll stick around. They'll come back to you as returning business or returning customers down the road. And yeah, just thinking about every aspect about what your client is after, what they want to accomplish, and how can you help them get there.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Like to summarize, right, just to be real quick, I mean, you put a lot of depth in there, but you want somebody with expertise and experience. You want somebody who can understand the data. So expertise and experience, you want a great listener and a great communicator, and somebody who can actually get you from A to Z. There's a lot that goes on in the real estate sales process, whether you're buying or selling.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you're going to spend a lot of time with your real estate agent, whether you're a buyer or a seller. You're going to be talking to them a lot. So it helps to find someone that you really connect with and jive well with, even on a personal level.
Here.
I'm just curious, like what is one thing that most people wouldn't realize about your job, like what you do?
I don't know. That's a hard one. I didn't think.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot
No,
there,
that's
but
okay.
I've got an answer for you that you'll get agents calling you all the time. And you're like, how do
That's
I
a
fill
very
out
good
this
point.
form? Is this correct? Yeah. How many days?
Forms
do I have to-
experts.
forms
Yeah.
experts.
Mhm.
People don't realize that I really appreciate responses to my emails. A lot of times I just have to hunt down documents or be like, hey, did you get this information? Are you good? No, I don't know. I think just knowing that I'm there to be a resource for them.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, I can't answer every single question. I can't aid you in your negotiations. That's what you guys are here for. But I exist to help facilitate things and make it so that you guys can be out in the field doing what you do best. And if a client has a quick question that I'm able to answer, I'm there. I'm just another resource for them. So I think I just can help them be more successful in their goals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what's fortunate about us as the Wagner Real Estate Group is it takes a team to deliver a high quality of top-notch service, and there's multiple team members involved. There's the agent that you're working with. There's Sarah, the transaction coordinator, making sure everything goes smoothly. There's Ashley out there helping buyers see houses quickly if the agent's not available. There's our admin assistant. There's our marketing team to make sure that the houses are presented well. There's our photography team, our video team. Like, it takes an awesome team to have success for our clients. And, you know, as you alluded to or spoke very explicitly, it's all about helping buyers and sellers with the most important transaction of their lives. That's either life-changing personally, life-changing financially in so many ways. So we're really grateful for that and grateful to have Sarah on the team and the guys here, as well as all the other members of the Wagner Real Estate Group. So, well, anyway, great podcast. Wonderful to have you on the team. Badass person, badass transaction coordinator, badass Bruins fan.
There we go.
We're happy to have you all the way from Vermont, and we want you to be here forever.
I have no plans of leaving, so thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Take care.